Good evening and welcome to Interface once again. My name is Tembisa Machele. It's been a sad week in South Africa as we watched in shock and horror the killing of 44 people at Lonmin's Marikana mine. The two unions that are involved at the mine are still at loggerheads, and none of them, including Lonmin management, is taking responsibility for the carnage. Now, tonight on Interface, we talk to the union representatives about what has led to this tragedy, and also we delve deeper into the living conditions of this and other miners in the country. We did invite Lonmin management, but they declined to join us in this discussion. So we will be continuing the discussion with the two unions involved. And also we'll be joined in the second segment by a specialist in the labor issues who will be telling us a little bit about what his views are on what's happened in this week. Remember that we'll be taking your comments on SMS through 3726, and also if you'd like to comment on our Facebook page, it's Interface on SABC3. We're joined now in the studio by Lisiba Sishoka, who is the spokesperson of the National Union of Mine Workers, and also Mr. Joseph Matunjwa, who is the president of the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, and that is AMCU. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let's start with the facts. Who organized this march? Because I've heard from both sides in this week, both of you saying you were not involved in the organization of this march. Lisiba, your union is the official union that's operating at the mine. Who organized this march?
Well, Tembisa, that is still a bit of a mystery, but throughout the debates we've had this week, we take it that AMCU had organized this, although they are denying it. But all indications are that they did, although we don't know how, especially because the NOM is the majority union in 3 operations at Lonmin, except for one operation, which is Career. We are saying this basically because in our discussion earlier this week, we have heard the president, Mr. Matunjwa, say that he knew that this thing was going to happen. He had interactions with Lonmin. So our view is that as a majority union, we should have seen it coming. If he knew 2 weeks before, we should have known it 3 weeks before. And we are quite surprised from the utterances that we have heard from AMCU that says Bernard Mokoena called them and so on and so on. And we are surprised that how can Lonmin call AMCU knowing that it's not a majority union at Marikana?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's ask Mr. Matunjwa. Did you know about this march?
Nothing about the march. What we know is that for today, it's about 4 weeks ago, Mr. Bernard phoned me and said that there are a group of workers who intend to send demands, but he doesn't know who's the face of these workers. Then I said to him, once you receive such set of demands, make sure you call all stakeholders, since you don't know from which grouping these workers are coming from. And then I said, Solidarity, UESA, NUM, ourselves, urgently so, in order to see what are those demands and to put it back into the structures where it belongs. Then he said he's still going to phone, ask Franz Baleni, which is the General Secretary of NUM. Nothing came forth.
All right, so let's look at this wrangling between these two unions. NUM is the majority union at this particular mine. What is your involvement? Because we hear that there's wrangling for recognition between these two unions.
AMCU is recognized that Career is a majority union.
At Marikana?
At Marikana, we don't have, the recognition that we've got is for Career. And also you must bear in mind that if we are at Career, where this carnage took place, it took place where NUM, it's a majority.
And you did not organize it, you can state categorically?
Categorically, nothing that we know of any march. We only knew that was on Monday when we were called by Jomo Kwali, and his exact word was saying, President of AMCU, Joseph, we ask your intervention. That was his words.
All right, let's bring in, once again, Mr. Sishoga. How does something like this happen under your very noses as the majority union? How do your workers go and sit on a hill like we're seeing now on the television and stage that kind of setting without your knowledge?
Well, of course, Tembisa, there's one question that remains unanswered now, which is if it is true that AMCU is not organizing, it's not a majority union at Marikana, why were they consulted? Why does, as Mr. Matunjwa puts it now, that he said to Mokoena, call all the stakeholders? What makes AMCU a stakeholder at Marikana?
Maybe by virtue of them being a union. Does the fact that they're not a majority union mean they shouldn't be consulted?
My understanding is that if there are problems relating to, for example, collective bargaining, as he puts them, we expect that the unions that are part of a collective bargaining agreement will be called and say, we have got a bit of a misunderstanding here. We have got workers that we don't know to which union they belong to that are saying they want an increment or they've got this and other problems. So in a way, we find it, we are quite disappointed that Lonmin is said to have been in contact with AMCU, which is not recognized at Marikana, to talk about issues dealing with workers.
Okay, this whole demand for 12,500 rand, where did that come from? Do you know?
We were only called on Monday.
So you have no knowledge of any of these demands or anything that's happening?
And the reason maybe the management called us, according to the information, why we're involved, how we know, is because the management said they don't know the face. Hence, then I said, if you don't know the face, call all the stakeholders. Then the issue of 12,500 is not known to us.
Is it known to NUM?
Well, the issue of 12,500 is not known to the NUM. And, you know, I think I needed to make a follow-up on the issue of faceless. Because, in essence, if Lonmin called AMCU and said, we don't know the face, and then AMCU responded by saying, call all stakeholders, including us, they are indirectly acknowledging that they are the faceless face there at Marikana.
Is that what happened?
No, it's quoting me out of context. The management is saying this grouping it cannot identify it. So then my intervention as a leader, you don't know those people, call all stakeholders.
Why didn't you talk to NUM and say, we've got these people that are faceless, as you've put it. They're not known. You are the majority union at that particular mine. Please go and sort it out.
I think you've heard their president along the days that NUM took a principled decision that they will never sit and talk to AMCU.
Is that true?
Well, I don't know where he gets it from. As the NUM, we have always said we are open to talks with everyone or anyone that is a union. So if AMCU considers itself a union, our doors are open. We have always engaged with solidarity, with UASA and others. But also what the president had said, Mr. Matunjwa is quoting him out of context. The president had said, we are not prepared to go to Marikana and engage anyone involved in criminal activity. Anyone involved in criminal activity requires law enforcement agencies. And that's what the president had said.
Unfortunately, he was not present at Marikana boardroom on the 15th of August. He was not present.
What happened on that day?
It's where then the NUM president, after confirmed that he will go to the mountain in the Xolani show, he refused blatantly. He said he's not going there because it doesn't have members. Until such time, one of the general who was present, General Mbembe, who told him that you are wrong. According to the intelligence that we have as SAPS, we identify 4 people who happen to be the ringleaders. 2 of them is NUM member and 2 of them belongs to AMCO. Therefore, you had to go to the mountain.
And I'm just, having heard exactly what you've said and having picked up what you've said earlier, I hear both of you saying mine management is actually at fault here because they're the ones that contacted this side and did not contact this side. But what I would like to know is what responsibility are each of you taking for this carnage? Is there any part that either one of these two unions are taking responsibility for? And we're going to be asking that question when we come back from the break. Remember that we do take your SMSs on 33726 and also your comments on our Facebook line, that is Interface on SABC3. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to Interface. We're talking tonight about the carnage that took place at the Marikana mine in Rustenburg. Talking to our guest, Lisiba Sishoka, who is the national spokesperson of the National Union of Mine Workers, and Joseph Matunjo is the president of the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, or AMCU. Before the break, I was asking the question, I think I'll pose it to you, Mr. Sishoka. What responsibility are you, as the NUM or NUM, taking for the carnage that we saw this week, as the majority union at that mine?
Well, I don't know what responsibility we should take. However, I must say that perhaps we should have known that this kind of a thing would happen. But I mean, we are human beings. We have got representatives at the mine. They have not picked up because it looks like this is something that was actually organized outside the mine, and the meeting had to happen immediately. So in a way, when we talk among ourselves, sometimes we think maybe we should have predicted that something like this would happen. But how do you predict that something terrible like this would happen? It's not the first time it happened. Of course, we had the similar problems at Impala, where clearly it became clear that AMCU was involved at Impala. It was involved. We had 6 weeks of illegal strike action, and our members could not go to work.
Has AMCU been instigating or propagating violence at these mines, trying to get recognition? Is that what's been happening here?
Let's start with Lonmin. There is a contradiction between the spokesperson of NUM and their general secretary. In the SABC 1 this evening, his general secretary confirmed that yes, management did make an offer to those workers. Surely, how can you make offer without negotiations? There was negotiations that was taking place. Hence, the negotiations went wrong, whereby, according to the information we received, I've been there, the face, they signed for that particular plus minus 700 rand without the mandate from the workers. That is what sparked the violence at the mine.
All right, we'll get them to respond in a second. But the question I'm asking you is, have you been heavily involved or in any way involved in the violence that we have seen at this mine and at Impala earlier?
We've got more than 100 branches where we've got recognition why there's no violence, why you started learning about this violence at this mine. Remember, in Impala, what happened? NUM had an agreement with the employer to give an increase to a certain section of the workers. And subsequent to that, there was the disagreement where people were not happy about that. Okay. So where was AMCO then? Because that was I want us to keep it to this particular incident. It is.
I hear what you're saying about Impala, but you made an allegation directly against NUM, and I'd like to give them an opportunity to respond, and that is that there were negotiations. You negotiated something that the workers were not happy with, and that's what sparked the violence. Is that what happened?
Well, James, I don't know whether it is a misunderstanding on the part of Mr. Matunjo or is just confusing issues. The NUM General Secretary said on TV this evening, he said, look, the management said we have done a survey in terms of certain categories, and this is the amount that we're prepared to give to workers. and workers accepted it. I don't know whether he missed this or he's just hiding it. But secondly, you must understand that there are bargaining processes. The NUM as a majority union had got a 2-year wage agreement there. And therefore, there was no need really from anybody, including himself, to come forward and say to the workers, there's a possibility of a 12,500. Because if I remember pretty very well, he says in one of his statements, he says, when I went to the mountain, I said to the workers that management is prepared to meet with you and to give you some money, and management changed. So on what capacity did he do that as a union that is not organizing there?
Phew. You know, it's surprising in this national station to hear such blatant lies.
Okay, and what we're hearing as the viewers is you are saying this one did this one did that. Let's take it back to the conditions. You are the majority union. Hold on, just 1 second, sir. The fact that the living conditions of these miners are so terrible that they have been said to be living in squalor, earning 4,000 rand, promises of a little bit more money. What have you done as the National Union of Mine Workers to try and improve the living conditions of the miners at Marikana specifically?
Well, Tembisa, I think many people who are saying that the NUM has done nothing, they don't appreciate where the NUM comes with mine workers. For many years, until 2004, mine workers were taking home nothing. The Provident Fund that the members today enjoy, for many years, mine workers were taking only a pair of boots. It was because of the NUM that fought hard and ensured that mine workers today have got some dignity. You see,
but it's the very same mine workers that we've been seeing on television, reading stories of in the newspapers, hearing on the radio saying their conditions are so deplorable that even the little bit that you've managed to fight for is not really taking them anywhere.
Wait, Tembisa, you see, I know we are not talking about the building of Rome, but Rome wasn't built in a day. We're working very hard as the NUM to try and improve it.
All right. Do you think they're doing a good job?
They're not doing a good job because the interest of workers is not at heart anymore. They are busy with investments, so they're busy with dividends. They are sitting in the boardrooms, they've got business wings and all those things. So where is the interest of the working class?
What would you do differently if you were the majority union there?
The volume speaks itself where we took NUM out. I will quote, one mine which is part of African Rainbow Minerals, where they've been there for years, people were receiving a gate wage, whereby we came as AMCO, we dismantled on to find the basic salary of those employees were plus minus 3,000 rand. We made a difference.
Mr. Matunjo, why not work together with the NUM? Why not say we're all fighting for the same goal at the end of the day? We're not going to try and get recognition. We're not going to try and make the other guys look bad. Let's all hold hands. Let's all work for the interests of the miners. Why not take that approach?
We've got different interests. AMCO doesn't have a career path to be a politician. No. Our position is about the working class politics. Our politics is based at the workplace, how we better the lives of the people. Look at the very same Marikana. They are claiming that they are 30 years in service of the workers. Those workers are staying where? In the shacks, working underground under the very sensitive situation whereby it's 40 degrees Celsius underground. Go and sleep in the shack. But they are proud of what? Of what? One worker was speaking in the media when he was asked. He said, for 15 years, where was AMCO in 15 years? They are still earning 4,000 rand. And he said, if I took the money for rental purposes.
But Rome wasn't built in one day, he says.
Rome, why them? Their lives, is changing every day. If you can ask him, when did he start working and where he is, today.
All right, let's take another short break. Remember, we do take your calls and your SMSs and also your Facebook messages. Our SMS line as usual, 33726. Keep those comments coming. And our Facebook page, Interface on SABC3. After the break, we're joined by Lone Sharp, who is a labor specialist, who will give us his views on this issue. To stay with us. Welcome back. This is the last segment of Interface tonight, and we're joined on the line by Mr. Lone Sharp, who is a labor specialist. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you for having me.
Just clarify something for us. The demand for platinum is decreasing. The prices are going up. The miners are demanding more money. Realistically, could Lonmin afford anything more to give to the workers?
You know, we're talking about a very large number of people who are demanding a very large wage increase from 4,000 to 12,500 per month. And we're dealing with about 1,000 employees in this situation. There's no way that that kind of increase is affordable for the mine.
Now, in terms of their responsibility beyond the wages, you've got miners across South Africa crying that they're paying too much in taxes already, and that maybe they don't have such a responsibility to then look after the living conditions of the miners. What are your views on that? Do you think that they should have done a little bit more to try and make sure that the living conditions, at least of these miners, are decent?
You know, I think trade unions involved in this have tried to make the issue out to be about workers' wages. That doesn't explain why there is this naked rivalry between the trade unions, which is ultimately what caused the conflict on Thursday and over the last few months. I think that rivalry between unions is what we need to explain. Yes, there may well be issues related to worker pay, but there is a crisis brewing not only in the mining sector, but also in the government sector and the manufacturing sector, where these rival unions are starting to make inroads into the traditional unions' domain.
Okay, we've got the two union representatives, and they're going to be answering that very question after we speak to you. But the question I'd like to get clarity on from you is whether or not Lonmin management could have done more to try and sort out the living conditions of these miners over and above maybe a slight wage increase.
I don't think so. I don't think mining management had anything to do with the debacle that we've had. I mean, the managing director ended up in the hospital. The HR director ended up in psychological counseling. I think management have been absolutely traumatized by what is occurring. No, there's no way that management could have done anything differently.
Okay. All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your thoughts, Mr. Lone Sharp, who's a labor specialist here in South Africa. Now, he lays the blame squarely at your door. He says the reason why this happened is because the two unions are fighting. Is that what happened?
Well, I think I needed first to respond to Mr. Matunjwa's last remarks.
But we are running out of time, so
No,
if we can
it's
just
fine,
make it
but
really short.
It's fine, but we cannot leave this misconception in lies, because this is pure lies. You see, you must appreciate the fact that in the mining industry, as Mr. Lone Sharp puts it, there are negotiations. Since 2004, we've been able to negotiate with the mining industry. And if you look at it, every year we have been able to score 12-13%. And this is said to be quite more by investors. We try and push him very hard, actually, in this industry. And I think it does explain to me why these huge demands behind these Marikana workers. It tells us a story that is not aware of the environment in which we are all operating.
All right, Mr. Matunjwa, I'm going to give you the last word. Mr. Lone Sharp says you are to blame. You two unions are to blame for what we saw this week.
Let's talk about Provident Fund quickly. BHP Billiton employees, NUM is a majority union. 8 years, the widows, they haven't received their monies from the very same Provident Fund owned by NUM. 8 years. About more than 15 women are still leveraging.
When are you going to sort this out is what we want
no,
to.
I mean, I just want...
Just because we've run out of time,
yes.
Are you prepared to sit down around the table and talk and sort this out? Because we don't want to see any more bloodshed in South Africa.
It's not about us. It's about the employer with the NUM and sort their dilly-dallings that they are doing in the boardroom. AMCO has been prepared. We can see the volumes where we came in, NUM was out, how the lives of people have changed.
When are you going to sort out your dilly-dallings with the employer?
Well, I think there's no dilly-dallying. I think the dilly-dallying exists in his imagination. The reality here is that as the NUM, we are continuing to engage the industry, and we want him to understand and come on board and work with us to improve, because he seems to be quiet.
Said he
And hopefully that's what
he
will
doesn't
happen.
want to
We
talk
have
to
run out
us.
of time.
How
What
can
we
you
need in South
negotiate
Africa is for you to sit down and find a solution that is best for the mine workers. Hopefully we will find that solution in the future, and we'll check in with both of these unions to see if they do finally hold hands and find a solution working for the miners in South Africa. That's where we have to leave it for tonight. Thank you so much for your comments and also your Facebook messages. Until next time, good night.